Good morning. The reading for this morning is taken from John chapter 13, verses 1 to 17. And you can find it in the church Bibles on page 1081 and on the screens behind me or in front of you. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "Those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." This is the word of the Lord.
Lovely. Please do take your seats. What a wonderful prayer that is, isn't it, as we come to God's word this morning, particularly to this passage that Boomy read for us a few minutes ago in John 13. If you've got a Bible in front of you, that'd be really helpful as we begin this next series of talks this morning in that part of God's word together. Well, 1967, the Beatles wrote those famous lines, "All you need is love. Love is all you need." And if I was to sing it, you'd all be able to echo it, I'm sure, and it's so well embedded, those words, "all you need is love." But here we are, 60 years later, I'm wondering whether we've actually ever learned anything from those sort of declarations of the need and the importance of love in a world that seems increasingly divided. I'm being waved at from the back. What have I forgotten? I caught the switch on my thing, did I? Sorry. Apologies. Is that better? There you go. Where we are, 60 years later, all you need is love. And we're living with that sort of tension. We think it's what we need, but we live in a world that's increasingly fractured and fractious and struggling to live that out, despite more connectivity, more connections, more friends, more likes. We're still searching. We're still searching, I think, for that root. All you need is love. Is that right? Is that possible? As we come back to John's Gospel this morning, as Alan has said, we're returning. We were here back in June. We finished up to the end of chapter 12. We've had a couple of goes at this Gospel. We've sort of run through in sections and then broken off again. We're coming back, just as a reminder, to what is an eyewitness account. If you're not familiar with the Bible, if this is all new to you, these are four, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John are four eyewitness accounts from those who were right up against Jesus in his life here on earth. And John particularly is described as the disciple Jesus loved, probably his closest friend here on earth. And John has put together this account of Jesus' life And he gives us the reason for doing it. If you just turn over a few pages in your Bible to chapter 20 and verses 30 and 31, he tells us why he's written it. He says, Jesus has done lots of stuff. He's performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which I've not recorded. But these are written for this reason, so that you might believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. John's very clear on why he's put this stuff together and why he's arranged it and collated it all as he has. And what we've seen so far in chapters 1 to 12 goes fast through about 3 years of Jesus' life. It's just fast through event after event, account after account. The whole book is structured around 7 statements. I am, what Jesus says who he is, his identity, and 7 great signs, things that he did to declare his glory, his majesty, his power, to talk about why he came. But you get to verse 13, and it's like that moment in your driving test where the driving examiner slams the dashboard and you have to put the car on its nose and brake suddenly, because from chapter 13 onwards, it slows right down. And it's almost like you're living and reading and walking through it in real time, almost moment by moment. The detail is there for us. And chapters 13 through to the end of the book, really, take up the events of just a few hours. Rather than being 3 years, just a few hours over one weekend of Jesus' life. And that's significant, that we start there and we think these details are there for a reason. What we're dealing with is Jesus' final words, the final teaching, the final actions of this man Jesus to his disciples particularly. He's been public up to chapters 10, 11, 12, and now 13. It's very private. It's very intimate. It's in a darkened upper room, a small room to begin with his disciples. It'll go out into Jerusalem, but it's all in those streets around Jerusalem as Jesus goes to the cross, preparing for his departure. That's why it starts as it does. Jesus knows the hour has come for him to leave this world and to go to the Father. He knows what's imminent. He knows the weight and the significance of what he's about to do, and he shows them his love. Having loved his own who are in the world, he loved them to the end. The final word in Jesus' life, the final word to us this morning, and the final word is love. That's Jesus' final word to his people. But it's a surprise how that works out. So, having loved his own who are in the world, he loved them to the end. 3 things I just want us to notice together this morning about this love of Jesus. And they're very simple headings. Hopefully they'll be memorable for you. The first one is very simply this. If you're making notes, boys and girls, it's just 3 words. You can get those down. See Jesus' love. He wants us to see the love of Jesus for his people. I don't know whether at home you are a shoes on or a shoes off. Oh, I've gone too far again already. Shoes on or a shoes off house. If you come to our house, we're really not that bothered if you take your shoes off, as long as they're clean, because our carpets are worn out anyway. It's not going to make a lot of difference if you're a shoes on or a shoes off house. I used to, in my previous job, have to go to some quite grand houses and do some valuation work, insurance valuation, probate valuation of the contents, that sort of thing. And you'd go to some of these big houses and you'd be met at the door. Do you mind awfully if you take your shoes off? And of course, this is what would happen. Because I'd be sitting there doing valuation work and there'd be a dirty great hole in my sock with my big toe sticking out. And I'd be walking through this fine Regency manor house or whatever with my toe sticking out trying to do the valuation work. But there's a foot faux pas, even worse than that begins this story. The evening meal was in progress, but nobody has washed the disciples' feet. They're at the Passover meal. This coming towards this significant time in Jewish history where year after year after year, God's people have come together to celebrate and to remember the escape, the rescue of God's people from slavery and captivity. They're coming together to celebrate this meal, and one of the simple tasks that should have been done hasn't been done, and this is significant. I think we get sort of taken away by Leonardo's painting of the Last Supper, Leonardo da Vinci's. This is what people perhaps have in their mind when they think about it. It's nothing like this. It's not like this at all. They would have been reclining. To eat like that, they would have been down on the ground, around a low table, reclining to eat their meal, leaning on one arm and their right hand, they would have been going in and they would have been taking the food, and there would have been 13 men around the table, the banter and the jokes and the fun and the food. The air would have been thick with the smell of wood smoke and roast lamb and herbs and freshly baked bread, and the wine would have been poured, and they'd have been enjoying this feast together. Problem is, if you're reclining around a table like this, your feet have been in the mud and the dirt and the dust, and it's April and it's quite hot during the day, and their feet have got sticky and they've got dirty and they've got dusty, and there's all manner of human and animal waste in the streets. It wouldn't have been very nice to have that right next to you as you're trying to eat this meal. But nobody has taken on this job of washing the feet. It's the lowest of the low job. It's one that would be given to the lowest of the servants in the household, to clean their feet. It's a grim job. I mean, feet are grim anyway, aren't they? Let's face it. Nobody likes feet. Nobody likes touching anybody else's feet. I don't like anybody touching my feet. It's horrible. And no one's done it. Nobody's washed their feet. And yet, Jesus acts. The evening meal was in progress. The devil's already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. He knows that the Father's put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he gets up from the meal, takes off his outer clothing, wraps a towel around his waist, and he pours water into a basin and begins to wash the disciples' feet. A very simple act of the most menial servant. Just pouring the water, taking a towel, getting down on his hands and knees, shuffling round from disciple, to Andrew, to Peter, to James, to John, and so on around the table, and just washing their feet and then drying them with the towel that's around him. Doesn't feel right, does it? Doesn't feel right. They all know what's going on. Jesus knows what's going on. He said that already. He knew that it was time for him to leave this world and go to the Father. He knows that his hour has come. That's a significant phrase in John's Gospel. So far it's not my hour yet. It's not yet time. It's not yet time. It's not yet time. And now it's time. The whole of history, the whole of the history of this nation, the whole of the history of the planet, the whole of Jesus' life has been moving slowly, inexorably to this point in human history, this moment. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power. He'd come from God and was returning to God. He knew that he had all authority in heaven and earth had been given to him. And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The next word, so. Because he had that power, because he had that authority, this was how he chooses to act. This was what he chose to do for his disciples. The disciples knew it. Later on, we read this. Do you understand what I've done for you? He asked them, you call me teacher and Lord. And rightly so. They've recognized who he is. They realize he's the Lord. Peter's gone on record as Jesus says, who do you say I am? Well, you're the Messiah, the Son of God. They know. But because of all this, and despite all this and all these sort of things going on, Jesus gets up and takes this place of the most menial servant. What kind of king, what kind of Lord, what kind of master does that? Who does that? To this bunch of disciples, another of the accounts tells us they were arguing about who was going to be the greatest. Even at this point around the table, they're saying, who's going to be top dog? Who's going to have the place of honor? Who's going to have the right-hand man job? And Jesus is showing them a different way. He's down on his hands and knees, acting out what true greatness really looks like. He leaves that place of honor. He leaves that place in heaven and comes down to earth and stoops and pours out his life in this act of sacrificial, devoted love to his disciples. He does what no one else in the room will do. And actually, he does what nobody else in the room can do. That's the second point I want you to think about this morning. If you see Jesus' love, I want you to accept Jesus' love. How would you respond if that was your situation? How would you feel? He comes to Simon Peter, who says to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, you don't realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. No way, says Peter. You're never going to wash my feet. This just isn't right. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't sit right with me that you, Lord and Master, Lord and Teacher, are going to wash my feet. It feels humiliating. He feels unworthy. It just doesn't feel right. But the basin and the water, it's just an enacted parable. It's just a picture of something far greater that Jesus is going to do in the next few hours. Not just cleaning feet, not just washing the grit and the grime and the dung from between the disciples' toes, but going to the cross so that their hearts, their lives can be cleansed. On the inside, deeply cleaned. He's talking about people's lives, not their feet. And it's hard for us to admit that we need that, isn't it? A bit like Peter, you're never going to wash my feet. For various reasons, different reasons, we will say to Jesus, you're all right, actually. We'll keep him at arm's length. I don't want you to wash my life. I don't need you to do that for me. It could be that you think, actually, my life hasn't been that bad. I've not really done too much stuff that is that bad anyway. It doesn't really need clean. It just needs a little bit of a wipe, and I'll be okay. It'll be all right. Or perhaps on the other end of the spectrum, you think, actually, you haven't got a clue what I've done. The shame, the guilt, the disappointment that I live with day after day, just that gnawing sense of failure that I live with, well, why would he want to do anything for me anyway? It's a problem both ends of that spectrum. Whether you think you've not done too bad or you're just crippled by guilt, you're at both ends of the spectrum, you're coming to Jesus on your own terms. You're trying to come to Jesus on your own terms and say, do you know what, I'll sort my own self out. Thank you very much. I don't need you to wash my feet. You're coming on your own terms. It's a bit like going to the doctor, isn't it? Simple illustration, but you go to the doctor, you've got a pain, you've got symptoms. You go to the doctor and they say, well, I know exactly what it is. And either some medication or some physio or some surgery. Here's the prescription for the problem that you have. And you say, thanks, but you're all right. I'll figure it out myself. I'll just live with it. Stupid. Peter says, you'll never wash my feet. And Jesus answers gently, tenderly, he says this, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Stop keeping me at arm's length. You can't do it on your own. You can't do it on your own terms. Unless I wash you, you have no part with me. You have no inheritance, no share in me. Nothing to do with this kingdom that I've brought to bear, this future, this eternal future. You have no part with me. That's what he says in chapter 14. When we come there in a couple of weeks' time, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Verse 6, no one comes to the Father except through me. There is no other way that your life can be cleaned up. There is no other way that you can be cleansed of the sin, of the shame, of the guilt in your life other than coming to Jesus. This is a picture. This washing of feet is a picture of what is going to happen in just a few hours' time at the cross for his people. We're stubborn. We want to keep Jesus at arm's length. We don't think we need it, or we think we've done too much. And there are parts of our lives that we'd rather hide, aren't there? I'd rather keep my feet hidden, if it's all right with you. There's parts of our lives that we'd rather keep hidden. There's parts of our lives we don't really want Jesus getting his hands on and prodding and poking away at. The stuff that we don't want those nearest and dearest to us to know about in our hearts, in our thinking, in our minds, other. But you cannot clean yourself up. Unless I wash you, Jesus says, you have no part with me. That's why baptism this afternoon is such a wonderful thing to come and celebrate. 4:30, down at the Ridgeway School, please come. Please come. The water is just a picture. A bit like this water was just a picture. But the water this afternoon that those 7 new brothers and sisters, new members of our church family are going down into the water, that's symbolic of that deep cleansing that has gone on in their hearts and their lives as they've come to know and put their trust in Jesus for themselves. They've come and said, I realise I've got no hope without you. You've heard some of the stories just hinted at on the screen. Bring some tissues tonight, because they're amazing stories of people who've just come to that point in their lives where they realise it's got to be Jesus or nothing. And he promises that he will clean you if you come to him. But you only need to come once. Lord, Simon Peter's, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. It's typical Peter, isn't it? Impetuous, verse 9, he says, well, you better do the whole thing then. You better do all of me. And Jesus says, no. Those who've had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you. He knew who was going to betray him. He knew about Judas. We're going to come on to him. Alan will teach us a little bit about that next week in the next section. But you need to come once. And this is lovely. If you're with us in the evenings, tracking through the evening series that Martin's just kicked off over the last couple of weeks, we're looking at the book of Leviticus, which deals with so much that underpins this upper room and the account of Jesus' life and as Jesus goes to the cross. As we're seeing in Leviticus, there are that sequence of rituals and festivals and feasts that they have to go through year after year after year. This Passover festival would have been celebrated year after year after year. Sacrifices would have been made year after year, month after month, week after week, day after day. And Jesus says, you've had a bath, you only need to wash your feet. The whole body is clean. You only need to come once. You need to come once to the cross and say to Jesus, forgive me. And you are forgiven. It is dealt with. It is done. The eternal destiny is changed because of what Jesus has done on the cross. You need to wash your feet, Jesus says. You're still going to screw up. You're still going to make mistakes. We're still going to live lives which disappoint ourselves, disappoint God. Well, not disappoint God, but disappoint ourselves because we're forgiven in his sight. We're righteous. We're made clean. But he says, look, you need to come every day. Just admit, come back to me. Not because you need washing again, but what does it do? It reassures us, doesn't it, that the cross is enough. We come back every day and realize that I am forgiven. I've screwed up again, but I know that in Jesus there is forgiveness. There's that ongoing grace that we access day by day, hour by hour, as we realize the sin in our own hearts. And it reassures us of that relationship that we have that is unbreakable because it's in Jesus Christ. Only requirement that you have is that you come in repentance and faith. You come acknowledging that Jesus is your only hope and you put your trust in him. That's all you need to do this morning. You don't need to do anything. Obedience comes, but obedience comes as a response, not as a requirement. And that's the third little section that we want to just notice this morning, that we're called to then copy this amazing love that Jesus has shown. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes, he returns to his place and says, do you understand what I have done for you? And you can imagine the disciples all sitting around the table looking at one another at this point, can't you? Do we understand? Do you understand? Do you understand? Have you got it? Do we understand? You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that's what I am. Now that you're interesting, changes the order, your Lord and teacher. I'm your Lord, you live for me now. Look what I've done for you. Now I've washed your feet. You should also wash one another's feet. I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you'll be blessed if you do them. What's been done for you, we're now encouraged to go out and do for others. And that's easy, isn't it? Grace Community Church, you're easy to love when you're lovely and when you're doing lovely things. And you're easy to love when it's convenient and fits in with my timetable and my agenda. That's easy then. Not so easy when, well, think of these disciples again for a minute. They're arguing about who's going to be the greatest. That's not particularly lovely, is it? They're all going to forsake him in just an hour or two. They're going to leg it. They're going to abandon him to his fate. They're going to disappear into the darkness and leave him. That's not particularly lovely, is it? One of them's going to betray him. Judas is sitting at the table, possibly already with 30 pieces of silver chinking in his pocket and burning a hole in his pocket. And Jesus shows him the same love as he does to the rest of the disciples. There's still the opportunity for Judas at this point. No, we're called to love when it's inconvenient and when it cuts across our timetable and across our agendas and when perhaps, well, you're called to love me perhaps when I'm not being particularly lovely. Seeing what I've done for you, you are to do for others. Charles Spurgeon, the 19th century pastor, preacher in London, tells a story of a king, a farmer and a nobleman. Sounds like a setup for a joke, doesn't it? A king, a farmer and a nobleman. The king is a benevolent king. He's a kind king. He treats his subjects with real fairness and love and kindness. He's a great king. Everybody loves being part of his kingdom. The farmer wants to respond in some way. He's a carrot farmer. He's been growing carrots all his life and he's good at it. And he knows how to get the best out of the ground and the soil and the conditions. And he grows the best carrot he's ever grown. Comes out one harvest and he thinks, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to dust it down, clean it down. I'm going to present it to the king. And he takes it to the king and says, here you are, O king. This is the finest carrot I've ever grown. And the king is touched that he would give up this expensive product for the king. And he takes it and he thanks him. He says, look, I've been noticing what you're doing. You're farming really well. You're a good farmer. My land adjoins yours. I don't really need it. You can make use of that. Why don't you double your farm and extend it a bit? And why don't you grow carrots in all of that part as well? And the carrot farmer goes away happy and touched and humbled that the king would bless him in such a way. The nobleman in his court, he rears horses. And he thinks, I'm going to have me a piece of this. He goes back to his stables. He says to his what do you call them? Stable hands, I suppose. Says, look, that's going to be the best thoroughbred. That one there. Treat it well, rear it well, and we'll present it. And so this foal is reared and raised and is taken as it's this most outstanding thoroughbred stallion that he's ever reared. He takes it to the king and says, here you are, king. This is the greatest horse that I've ever grown. And the king takes it and he says, thank you very much, and hands it over to his royal stable hand. And the nobleman says, hang on a minute. You know, the extra field bit? The extra stable bit? King says, no, here's the thing. The farmer gave me the carrot. You gave yourself the horse. You see the motivation? He was trying to get something out of it. The farmer got nothing out of it, or intended getting nothing out of it, but was blessed. What we do is a response, not a repayment. We're not trying to earn and pay Jesus back. We are responding in love to what Jesus has done for us. As we see the act of love here in the upper room that points to that greater act of service on the cross, we want to respond. And actually it is the secret to a happy life. Did you see how the passage ended? Verse 17. Now you know these things. You will be blessed if you do them. There will be this place of blessing and happiness if you live this life in response to what Jesus has done for you. What is the secret of a happy life? Well, we're told it's wealth or health or position or status or relationships or fitness or a PB or a self-help of some kind. They're all good things. But the real secret, Jesus would say to his disciples, of being blessed, of a happy life, is one of service, of love and of service to others. And we're to one another. Do you see that? You should wash one another's feet. Loving the world, loving those out there, that'll come. Later on in the passage, when you get to verse 34, Jesus says, this is how everyone will know you're my disciples. As you live this love out with one another, it will impact the community. But here to start with, he's saying, look, you should do this to one another, within the family, within the kingdom. This is how you should be relating to one another. So what do? We try and copy Jesus, don't we? We try and lay aside any dreams of status or position or rank, any comfort, even when people aren't being lovely or it cuts across our agenda. We move towards those who are overlooked, those who are the least. We do what's unglamorous and unnoticed. We get our hands dirty. We roll our sleeves up and get down on our hands and knees. And as we do that, in response to the amazing love that Jesus has shown to us, he's promised us we'll find the way of blessing. And I'm so thankful that this church family lives that out. You get here at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's teams of people already here, squirreling around to service, getting the place ready, getting the building ready, getting the kettle on so that we can have a cup of coffee, getting the desk and the sound desk and the vision desk, all that sort of stuff. This is what we're called to do for one another in service of our King. All you need is love, right? All you need is love. It is, if you define it rightly. Not some schmaltzy, self-centered, what am I going to get out of it? But this love that sees what Jesus has done and says, wow, why would he do that for me? Why would he come from heaven down to earth, not just get his hands and feet in the dirt and dust, but go to the cross? Why would he do that for me? All you need is love. So how are you going to respond this morning? There are two responses in our passage. There are two responses actually in this whole section that I just want to bring to your thinking, to your mind as we come to a close. The two responses. There's Peter, verse 9. He's still confused. He's still not quite sure what it all means. He still hasn't quite got it. But he's all in, isn't he? All in. In his weakness, in his confusion, in his misunderstanding, he's all in. Are you? Lord, Simon Peter said, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. Unless you wash me, you have no part with me. Are you all in? Or are you like Judas? We'll see this next week. But verse 30, as we go down to the end there, Jesus offers him some bread. And as soon as Judas had taken the bread, he went out. And it was night. You're meant to shiver as you hear that phrase. You're meant to get the chill of there's the darkness, and Judas goes out into the darkness. They're the two responses immediately in this moment to Jesus. Or which basin are you going to pick up? Jesus poured water into a basin and chose to serve, lived a life of service, lived a life of sacrifice and love for us. We're told at the end of this little section, Matthew tells us in Matthew chapter 27, there's another man who takes a basin of water and washes his hands. His name's Pilate. As Jesus is put on trial, as Jesus is abandoned and left and he's put on trial, Pilate really does as much as he can to get Jesus off the hook, but in the end hands him over to be crucified, and he significantly just takes water in a basin and washes his hands of the whole thing and says, I don't want anything else to do with Jesus. Which basin are you going to pick up this morning? I'd urge you to follow Jesus' example. Come to him, be washed by him, live a life of service to him. So that why? Well, as John says, so that you believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you might have life in his name. The band are going to come and lead us in our song to close. As we just think about that for a minute, I'd love you just to take a moment while they're doing that. Maybe you need to think and confess to God that you are trying to fix stuff yourself. Maybe you need to just tell him that you're going to stop this morning and you're going to come to him and you're going to ask him to wash you, to clean you for the first time. Maybe you need to ask the Holy Spirit to show you where it is that you need to move towards serving and loving one another. But just take a moment as the band begin. We're going to sing as they lead us and stand in a moment of that one who is all compassion, that one who is pure, unbounded love.